Hey guys, welcome to Western Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome to another episode. Today we have a really cool guest. We're going to dive right in with him for time purposes. We only have you for 30 minutes, so you want to make sure it is an action-packed, nutrient-dense 30 minutes here. So we have Clinton Hawkins today, my friend who's a franchise owner of Pillar to Post right here in Buffalo. And I think it would be safe to say that Clinton, nobody does more home inspections in Buffalo than Clinton. I think he does like over 600 a year, but we'll clarify that. But first off, Clinton, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. So am I correct on the 600 home inspections you did like last year or something crazy?
Yeah, it's usually around in the 500 to 600 range. I mean, COVID kind of set some of that back, but yeah, usually that's about average.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I have not met a home inspector that has done over 300 yet.
Really?
So, at least he's never verbally told me that.
Yeah,
So,
I was doing that like my second year.
yeah, so kudos to you, man.
Thanks.
So I know Clinton, he's a busy guy, so he gave us some of his time today, which we really appreciate, man. So let's dive in, dude. So I always kind of say the same thing off the bat. I doubt you woke up at 5 years old and said, I want to own a home inspection business. Like, I'm sure it evolved to where you are today. So what did you do before, and how did you get into what you are doing today, owning a franchise for a home inspection company?
So, graduated high school, went directly into the Marine Corps right after high school that August. Got out, didn't have many job prospects when I got out, so I started a commercial cleaning business because I couldn't find a job. Nobody would employ me once I got out. So did that, finally got a job at American Axle, making gears at a plant out in Walden. It's closed now, but I actually left there before they closed to do my cleaning business because I would do 14 hours at American Axle, and then at night go clean and then do that all the next day. So after it grew, I actually quit, and then the plant closed down a year later. So that was a good thing. But that cleaning company turned into construction. I was cleaning an office that did rentals. They had over 2,000 or 3,000 rentals in the city of Buffalo. And he asked me one night cleaning the office if I knew how to do, that type of stuff, turnovers and things like that. And I didn't know, but I said yes. So he gave me a few apartments, let me do them and see how they came out. They came out right, and then he gave me more, and then just learning on a job, learning about doing that, started a business doing that on the side and cleaning, and that just grew into a full construction business. I learned how to do everything by hand, just on a job.
Wow.
Yeah, so that turned into
A lot of YouTube, I imagine.
A lot of YouTube. I messed up a lot of those apartments too. Didn't make as much money as I probably should have in the beginning, just because materials, things like that messed things up. But it worked out. They looked good in the end. So he said yes, kept going, and I started doing 500 or so of those a year, and then just when people moved out, we came in, but that turned into major construction like renovations and additions, and then it just kept going. It just kept getting bigger. So, but I had done it a long time. Started getting
Body's
older.
tired.
Yeah, body breaks down, and you're on your knees a lot, doing floors and stuff like that. So it's just like it was time to look for the next best thing. But stay in the industry that I love, building and stuff and working with my hands. That's what I went to high school for, building trades. So got into it, saw Pillar to Post, looked it up. Did some research. There's a couple other franchises out there. Chose them, and 7 years later, I am.
So that's awesome. By the way, that's hard to nail that much time in a minute or two. You did a good job. So when you were interviewing franchises, what were you looking for? Like, I gotta imagine you, just like when you're doing construction, just like me when I'll start my business, I'm just making this up as I go. Like, I think what questions do you think when people are looking into a franchise in general, what questions should they be asking? Do you think, in a general senses?
For franchises, because I've been a part of a few. That cleaning company was a franchise also. You want to make sure that they take care of you and your individual business as a franchise owner. Some of them don't. Some of them will, like the cleaning company I was a part of. I ended up going out on my own because what they were doing was taking my accounts and giving them as promised business to new franchise owners, because they had to promise you a certain amount of business. So instead of looking out for me and going in and saying, hey, how can we fix this? If they had a complaint or something, they would go in and, like, I missed a trash can or something. Like, they would go in and say, hey, we can get another franchise owner in here if it's not
Almost
working.
like blackmailing,
Yeah,
in a way.
kind of planting the seed in their head to say, oh yeah, you know what, give me somebody else. And so then they promise that business to them. So you want to franchises, you want to make sure they're out for you. They take care of you.
Do you know of any questions you could ask them? Because everybody says they're out for you, right? Like kind of like you walk into any building and there's a mission statement that says we're about people, but we know most of them aren't really about us. So do you have any how would you actually find out? Do you think if they actually care about you as an individual?
Ask them straight up questions. You have to ask. How would you serve me if this happened? Give them situations. If this happened, what would be your response to it? Because you're trying to join that franchise. You're trying to get them to accept you as a franchise owner, but you also should care about how they treat you. So you can ask them questions too. You should ask them questions.
And were you allowed to interview other franchisees too?
Yes, that was the other thing. They gave me the option to. They gave me a list of franchise owners to call in my area and outside of my area, and I called them all.
Awesome.
I called every single one of them.
Yeah. Obviously, it was the green light because you bought the pillar to post there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was the name and just looking at their history and everything they've done and how they took care of the franchises. And I called some outside of the list they gave me too. Just
Yeah, because obviously you want all pre-prepped questions, right? Like, oh yeah, tell them Johnny you love it, right?
Yeah. So you could call it outside of that too. So they're all listed. Call them and say, hey, I'm thinking about purchasing a franchise. What do you think of it?
And one thing I've noticed about you, Clinton, maybe that's your military background, maybe it's just who you are as a DNA person, but you do your research.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you're methodical when I talk to you. You don't just make things up top of your head. Like I know when you say something, you thought about it.
Yeah, I can't. It's just not him. I can't. If it's anything online, I'm looking at it. I'll look at 50 sites before I make a decision on something.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got something to say, so
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do my research.
So that being said, man, so how long ago did you buy the franchise?
2018. Actually, 2017 I bought it. End of 2017, 2018 I started doing home inspections.
So 8-9 years.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
So that being said, man, knowing what you know now, I obviously I still speak for me. A lot of trial and error, and actually a lot of error in my end. But what have you learned that 8-9 years that you would tell somebody? What would you tell yourself maybe 8-9 years ago if you started from scratch today?
I wish, me personally, I wish I knew to be more social. I think being social and learning how to talk to people and speak to people is big. Being in construction and stuff like that, you didn't have to talk to anybody really. So,
it was you and the radio.
Yeah, you just talk to people and send paperwork and things like that. But what got me when I got into home inspection is how much interaction you have to have. How much people want real. They want to talk to you. They want personable people and attitudes and things like that. So when I got in, I didn't really have that. So that was something I had to work on. So if I knew if any business you want to get into, especially anything like this, you want to be able to learn how to talk to people, how to communicate, be personable.
And how did you do that? Did you listen to podcasts? Did it just come naturally once you, because sometimes you're just best thrown in the fire sometimes, and you just learn that way. How did you learn?
I was thrown in the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really have time to, even with learning through deliverables and what could happen. When it did happen, it was like, whoa. It was like, uh-oh. So just learn to actually get out there and talk to people and things like that. Make yourself available. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations and stuff like that. Yeah, it'll be like that for a little bit, but eventually it goes away.
I have to imagine the military, too, you're used to having, people yelling at you or want things a certain way. So I got to imagine this was a little easier.
Yeah, and it's structured. Sometimes you got to get out of it. Sometimes you got to get out of that. Yeah. And you can advertise all day long, send emails and stuff like that, but that really doesn't. That's not going to help you out. People want to see you.
Yeah. So, I got to say that obviously we're both in the real estate space. We're not realtors, but we have services or products that service realtors. Right. So when did you start getting really? Because I feel like when there's a realtor event, Clinton's there. Clinton is there, and he's working it, and you're always there, which obviously bodes to your success. So my point is that when did you start doing that? Was it right off the bat? How long did it take you to get into that real?
Which is crazy because I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I knew I needed to be there, and I'd be like, last minute I'd be like, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say within after my first year, I went to an event that I was kind of forced into, and it went well. And I'm like, okay, this is not easy. So now I just started, forget it. Throw yourself into it. Go. You'll meet somebody, even though you don't know anybody in the room. Go. do it, and then once you're in that space, and people will come up and talk to you, and then it just grows from there. So you get a lot more comfortability with being in those rooms and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say about a year, maybe a year and a half, it took for me to get myself out there and start really talking to people.
Yeah, and so all of us are wired so differently, and I've realized just from doing this for almost 10 years now at this point of running events that most people, I would say 95% of people don't know how to work a room, or they just don't have the person. They're not wired that way. Like, Dave, I'm not like you. I can't, people know me. Oh, Dave, you could talk to a rock if you'll talk back. I'm just not wired like you. And that's extremely fair. But my point of saying that is I want to ask you the question of, let's say they're like, because you come across me as more of a, every time I meet you, you're more reserved. You're thoughtful when you speak. You're not going to yell across the room. You're not so what advice do you have for people who are just more reserved? They're not like rah 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 type of guy, but they want to network. Like how do you go up to people and start asking questions? Usually away from the come to you. Do you have a little trick of the trade so it kind of breaks the ice a little bit better for them? Anything that comes to mind at all?
Both. I would say both. I kind of pick my spots when I'm from the people that I do know now, but starting to get in from a couple of people that I knew. I would talk to them. And then sometimes when people see you speaking to somebody else, they'll come and interject themselves, or they'll come and introduce themselves to you. But if you're just outgoing and personable, even if you may be kind of reserved, people come find you. People will want to talk to you. And that's kind of what I did starting out, is just picking my spots. Sometimes I would go up to somebody and say something, or somebody make a comment, and I'll kind of be in the area and I'll talk about whatever is going on. But it is rough. It is rough to be like that if you are introverted, but it's just networking is something that you kind of have to do. Now it's like nothing. Now it's just like you're everywhere. You talk to somebody, you walk into a
But nobody knows you now. Like, hey, Clint, how you doing? Right? Versus who's this guy? I never seen this guy before.
Easier. So when nobody knows you, I would say I would look around the room and I would just see who might be personable to talk to, or just walk up and say, hi, my name's Clint. I'll introduce myself, and usually it worked, but it's getting over that fear to do that.
Yeah. Do they want to talk to me, right? What do I say next after? What's the follow-up question to hi, I'm Clinton, right? Or to what you do?
And I learned that in doing so, there's not many people that's going to be like, who are you? Get away from me. So somebody's going to talk to you for a little while, even if they don't really want to, but nobody's going to make you feel like crap when you walk up and talk to them. So.
And that's on them, right? Like, okay, well, I've avoided you, so I'm avoiding you from now on. So to get to your expertise of home inspections, when people are buying, not even just a home, but like a building, maybe it's a commercial building, right? Because I know you do commercial inspections as well. When people are deciding to get a home inspector, what questions should they be asking them, whether they're on the home inspection, or we can do two parts here. Okay. When they're thinking of who, sometimes you want to know, kind of like if I'm building a deck, I want to know you actually legitimately know how to build a deck. Anybody can say they know how to build that, but do you actually know what you're doing? So for me, I'm constantly thinking, how do I ask in a polite way, how do you know what you're doing, right? So that's the first question. What questions should they ask a home inspector when they're deciding who to use? And the second question is, what questions should they be asking on the inspection themselves? So let's go to the first part. When someone's deciding who they should use as a home inspector, let's say they have two people in mind, what questions do you think would really help to actually ask them that you think they would know their stuff, or maybe they're the right home inspector for them?
So initially, I'd say the first question you should ask is experience. How long you've been doing it, and it should be followed up with what was your prior experience to being a home inspector. Because a lot of home inspectors are not from the building trades. They don't know the first thing about home inspecting. So say if you had an office job, you decided I want to be a home inspector, you go to school only teaches you so much.
And the course isn't extremely long. How long is the course?
It's like a couple of months, maybe 2 or 3 months, and it's a couple hours a day, and you get a piece of paper when you get ready to go out there. So that tells you you're a home inspector. So having prior experience does matter, and then how long you've been in matters also, because you do grow, you do get experience as you go through doing home inspections. Because for most home inspectors, it takes you about 500 plus inspections to really know and see everything you might possibly see in a house. It takes that long. So 20 home inspections, things like that. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
So really
when you trained your first employee, Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, you put the guy through how many home inspections?
Yeah, but he went over like 400 something inspections.
And he's like rolled his eyes at 400 home inspections. I went, that guy put you through 400 home inspections before you did like your first on your own. Yeah, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That's like 2 years for most people.
It's school, and you realize when you're training people what they don't know, and it's just the truth. And so home inspection, initially it should be experience. What did you do beforehand? Do you have any construction experience? And then two, how long have you been a home inspector? Because if you got both, then that person knows what they're talking about.
Right, because they've had the experience before it makes complete sense. Now, getting to the second part of the question, when people are doing inspections on a building, whether it's commercial or residential, I'm sure you're asking different questions, for different types of buildings here. But what are questions that you think people should be asking on those inspections that maybe they skip or they miss, or maybe that aren't so obvious, maybe?
People ask about the basic stuff, the roof and things like that. I'd say a lot of people don't ask about, which they should, is any type of additions. Is anything like, name just jumped right out of my head. Permitted. Is everything permitted? Like that? That's huge. So
versus just building it on there without a permit.
Yeah, because there's some stuff that looks good, but you want to make sure it's permitted, because if it's not and it's done wrong, if somebody looks at it, they can make you take it down. And it may have been up for 20 years, but if it's not permitted and it's not done right, because it wasn't permitted, they can make you take it down. So you want to make sure things are permitted. A lot of people don't ask that question. I'll kind of mention it sometimes in my home inspections that, you want to make sure that's permitted, or make sure it was done right. If they ask that, does that mean they have to go to the realtor to figure that out? You can get it from the county records.
Okay, you can call yourself
and see if something was permitted or not. But even though most of the time, and it may be done right, but you want to make sure, because it's on you if it's not. So
all it takes is a guy, a county person that says, they drove by and say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right. It has been here for 20 years, but it doesn't matter. It shouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Have you seen that happen, by the way? I have to ask. Have you seen something where it's been?
Yeah, I've seen things happen. Yeah, people, not necessarily. It was usually like a newer structure, maybe a few years old or whatever. Yeah, it wasn't permitted. Something may have gone wrong. Now somebody's pulled another permit. Inspector's out there and says, "Hey, this is not right. It's unsafe." Most of them won't, but if it's anything unsafe, then they're gonna make you take it down.
Yeah, I totally get that. So any other questions that come to mind that you think people should ask while they're doing the home inspections that maybe aren't asked often, or they don't think about because this isn't their field?
Yeah. Just, I would say, little things like making sure, shutoffs, little things like shutoffs under your sinks. You should have those. 2 and 3 pronged outlets. You want to make sure those outlets are 3 pronged. A lot of people don't pay attention to that. Not necessarily fire hazard or anything like that, but it could possibly be. So you don't want to use those little adapter things that people plug into the wall.
Yeah, the quad ones, you mean?
Yeah, to get not a little 2 pronged that turns it into a 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to use those things. They don't really hold a large load, so those things usually pop or it can cause a fire. You don't want to use those, but little things like the shutoffs, and making sure you know where your shutoffs are, like gas line, water, stuff like that. Any type of maintenance questions, furnaces, stuff like that. You should always have your stuff, maintenance every year. But yeah, outside of the roof, structure, foundation, windows that everybody knows about, and things like that. That's the type of things you want to know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I hope you wrote that down, because especially a lot of people that listen to, most entrepreneurs have some type of real estate usually, right? They always have their foot in the game. So I know about, whether you're going to buy your next home or another property, this was definitely useful for everybody involved here. So that being said, man, what trends do you see in the home inspection business maybe coming up that haven't been there the last couple of years that maybe that stand out to you?
Trends, just technology. Everything's becoming more digital, and that's one of the reasons why I chose Pillar to Post too, because Pillar to Post is usually ahead of everything. So once Pillar to Post does something, everybody else, it kind of trickles down to everybody else, and then they do it. But by the time it catches up, we're on to the next thing. So technology, everything from reports to pictures and descriptions of everything. Side options like apps and stuff like that you can use for information on your houses or appliances and things like that. Everything is becoming digital. Like we did the binder thing and printing it out and stuff like that, and that's all gone now just because everything is, here's an email, here's an app. It's all
the
there.
Binder days are gone.
The binder
you hand them the binder.
Binder days are gone.
I remember my first home inspection like 14 years ago. I was like, here's your binder. Like, this is, not anymore.
And it's cool. The binder it still is. Binder's cool, but yeah, everything's going to technology now.
So for other entrepreneurs, and this is a local podcast for people in Western New York, for entrepreneurs, what advice would you give local entrepreneurs on entrepreneurship at all? Maybe think about starting their own business, or anything that kind of stands out to you in terms of advice that maybe you wish someone told you, or maybe that you just kind of see happening?
Not really. I don't think it's anything locally. I mean, it will be industry dependent, regardless of whatever business you're going to start. If it is real estate related, you want to make sure you are familiar with all the offices that are out there and how it works. Like, because from teams to brokerages and how all that stuff works, or whatever. Like you want to know that type of stuff. You should be high on information about that type of stuff and who you're talking to.
Yeah, and like you kind of sparked a really good question for me too. Like I noticed that like 20 years ago. So let's go to real estate specific for a second. So let's say someone's trying to reach real estate agents, but 20 years ago you would just bring some donuts in, and you would say, "Can I please, right? Can I speak, right?" But a lot of realtors are not in offices anymore, right? They have their own offices, or they work from home. Everything's over DocuSign, et cetera, et cetera. So like, what advice do you have? Like, let's say somebody is, we'll use Jeff because we just had him in the meeting here. Let's say you're a real estate clean-out company. You're trying to get in front of these people. Obviously you can show up to the office, but a lot of newer agents are more of there. And if you want to get in front of the top people who are actually selling a lot of real estate, what advice do you have for them to get in front of them, or to build relationships, or like, because obviously you're doing this every day. So I got to imagine you don't have to give all your tricks to the trade, but maybe something that kind of sticks out to you.
Honestly, my most success in it has been not to be pushy. Is not to keep bombarding these people with calls and emails and things like that, and to be out in social more. Even though it's a lot of time, it's a job. It's a lot of time. It's after hours. It's all that stuff. But if you got kids and family, but people seeing you is better than anything. So you can introduce yourself through an email and things like that. And if they don't respond or say no, I don't bombard them again. Eventually, I'll see somebody somewhere. I'll talk to them, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you sent me an email," and things like that. So that I think people appreciate now these days, in the era of constant digital messaging, constant texting, constant emails, and things like that. Like people are like, later, and that person can go by the wayside real quick with an email. It's good to put it out there, but after that. If it's not reciprocated and things like that, you may do a follow-up, may not, but they'll see you somewhere and remember that you did that, and it's on their own time. Mm-hmm. So if they want to talk to you then and there, they can talk to you then and there, instead of you saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you right now." Or like dinner, like not dinner, but lunches, things like that. Sometimes you get a yes, sometimes you get a no, but I'm not pushy. I've never been that, and I think that works out better for what I've done. I think most people in the industry feel that way.
They do. They can tell. Yeah, right. And so obviously communication is done basically not even in person anymore, right? Yeah. So I have to ask, actually, I'm just curious how this question is actually, it's just out of my own curiosity. How many realtors come on home inspections? Is it mostly just you by yourself? Is it you with the clients? Is it with you and the realtor? What percentage of realtors actually show up to home inspections these days?
Actually, I'll say about 80, 85%.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, yeah. More than I thought they would be.
Most of them do show up. Most of them should show up, even if it's to check in on a client, make sure everything's okay, and they may be there for 10, 15 minutes or whatever. Some do stay the whole time. But yeah, I think I'd say most of them.
Okay, wow, okay, cool. So you're not really by yourself at all.
No.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering.
It's rare. I actually, you should be there. And some home inspectors are like, don't show up to the client or come later at the end of the inspection. I actually prefer them there because when you're hearing it firsthand, and me sending you a piece of paper saying, here's all this stuff, read it. Like, I'd rather be able to speak to you then because you'll have a lot of questions afterwards.
Oh, it kind of saves you a little bit more time on the back end. You can communicate more effectively.
It actually does. I know some people think it slows you down, and it does maybe sometimes slow you down when you're doing an inspection. People are asking a lot of questions, but on the back end, you'll be doing the same thing. So you might as well get it out there. Yeah,
when I talk to realtors, the number one fear they get when they talk to a home inspector is, please don't be a deal killer.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sure you've heard that a million times,
Oh, yeah.
right? Just like, but be informative, but don't scare them because there's a little crack and it's not a big deal. Like, oh my God, like the house is going to fall down, right? So how do you balance that, like where you're not a deal killer, but you're informative?
Knowledge, being knowledgeable, and knowing what you're talking about. If somebody asks you a question and you can answer it, and you know the answer to it off the bat, and be able to constructively give them that answer, people are comfortable with that. If you ask me a question, I'm like, well, let me check on this, and I'm evasive with my answer and stuff like that. People get scared of that.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing and having that knowledge when somebody asks you a question is super important.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. So last question here because we're almost out of time already. It's good. We're going by really quickly here. So let's take home inspections off for a second. What is the biggest thing you've learned about entrepreneurship? I cannot talk to it right now. Edit that Slack go, just so you know. What is the biggest thing you've learned about entrepreneurship in general? Like, what is oh man, like I thought it was this, it was going to be that, or oh, I wish I spent more time doing this or less time doing this. Like, how has been entrepreneurship doing for you? And like, what is one thing you kind of knew going into it in a general sense, nothing necessarily to do with home inspections?
I've been doing it for a long time. Pretty much been self-employed since I was like 22.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I thought. What most people think is it's gonna be easy. There's no work. You only have to do this and things like that. Like it's all the time. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. You're never off.
Isn't that funny? People, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want more time with my family. Like, and sometimes it does the exact opposite for you.
It is the exact opposite. Yeah, you people think you make your own schedule. You kind of don't make your own schedule.
You do, but you don't.
Yeah, you do. You don't. You really have to take time off. You're really forcing yourself away from the business to take a vacation, to take some time off, and it's hard to walk away. Like literally, if I go on a trip, that I have to go on a trip to be on a vacation or have any time, because if I'm here and I say I want a week off, it'll never
Clinton,
happen.
that's so funny you say that, man.
Happen.
And you and I are the same cloth, man. I told my wife, you want my full attention, get me out of the state.
Yeah, you
have to get me out of New York. Nothing wrong necessarily with New York State. I just have to be like, I need to be something where I'm distracted, where I can't go home. Like a bonus if there's no Wi-Fi or internet connection, right?
Make it so I can't work. Yeah. So, or answer calls.
Because otherwise you're thinking about work, even when you're not working. You're thinking about, well, how could I have handled that better? Or what do I have to do? So that email come through them and waiting for the last 2 days, right? So how do you balance that, Clinton?
This person's calling and you're like, I don't want to answer, but you have to because you're here now. But there you're like, I just physically can't do this. I'm good.
Yeah, I got to imagine, obviously, you can get a call at any moment, right? You're almost like on call, even, because you're a home inspector. So how do you balance that? Obviously, you have 2 kids, 2 and 4, I believe you said.
Yeah.
And like, how do you, like, is there a certain time where maybe you give it to your employee, Alex, right? Or like, is there a certain, like, how do you balance that maybe?
I was late in hiring. I probably should have hired years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was so busy, nonstop. And it causes issues. So hiring Alex was a good thing. And sometimes, I can say, hey, I can trust him enough now that he knows his stuff. He can go out there and do his home inspection, and I can kind of pass that off to him now. So it's a little bit easier. The agents that, the people that you that need and want you're available for, and just it gives you more time, and more time allows you to focus more on your business, and it's just you're not wrapped up so tight like you always are with doing everything. Having that spare time actually allows you to serve your clients and the agents better, because there's free time. I can think, I can get this paperwork done in a certain time. But
when they're in front of you, you can listen versus think in the back of your head, wait, did I send that report out?
Yeah, trying to shut down. I've learned to shut down. It was hard in the beginning, but I've learned to shut down, because you always think that if you don't answer a call or you don't do something, that person's going to not talk to you ever again.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like that. So you have to force yourself into thinking like that and say, hey, all right, it's okay to call this person back 15 minutes later.
You know what? You're totally right.
Tomorrow, stuff like that.
Yeah, like, I'm glad you're making me feel more normal, Clinton, because I thought I was the only one that needs to get out of state to be to kind of get myself out of my business. And not only that, like I always sounds like you kind of like me, where you feel like I have to answer this person back right away. Like even though it's not an emergency, they just it could be just a silly question like, oh, what time are we meeting again tomorrow for this? Like I have to stop what I'm doing with whatever, whether it's dinner or my wife can be talking about something, and like, oh, just give me. I mean, I don't have to answer that email right now.
Yeah.
It's just, it can wait. You're going to be okay. No one, she's going to show up. So I love it, dude. Well, for those that really connect with you, Clinton, I'm sure a lot, especially in the real estate community, a lot of people connect with you. But for those that would love just to maybe ask you a question, maybe use your services, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you if they ever want to talk to you?
I like to be contacted directly. I have the website and the business phone number and things like that, but I like to call me directly.
Yeah, people put their cell phones out on the air all the time.
Yeah, so that's 716-771-7325. That's my direct phone number. We book online now. We do all the other stuff, but you can easily have your clients contact me by going online. They can get all the pricing and everything like that too. But for realtors directly, call me and I can book it. Or if they have questions, it's just easy to get all that stuff out of the way if you call me directly. I don't mind it. It's better for me if you call me.
Yeah. I love it. Well, now you guys have it, and obviously what's great about the recording, if you missed that, you can replay it. So Clinton, I know you're busy. Obviously it's summer. It's prime season right now, and you took time out for us today. And I just appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.